This morning we want to welcome a person who really doesn't need an introduction to Daytime Tri-Cities. Kenny Hawkins has been around WJHL for 40 plus years now. How does that feel? 40 years. I'm getting close,
All
but
right.
40 years for you.
It's 40 years and a few days.
Okay.
Does that make it like it's a lot of days after that 40? But yeah, it is 40 years. Really, I think this month.
Yeah.
Just hit 40.
Wow. Wow. Talk to me, 4 decades being here in Johnson City, but you started out in Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your early years. Talk to us about some of your history. What led you to Johnson City?
Well, it's hard to believe, but I've actually been in front of a television camera since probably 1980.
Wow.
To be completely honest with
Yeah.
you, and that's every year since 1980. After my football and basketball careers was over in Oak Ridge because of injury, I decided to do something that would keep me close to sports.
Right.
And I thought about either becoming a coach or going into radio and TV, because at that time, back in the early 80s, we were one of the few schools probably in the country that had a radio and TV department.
Right.
And so I signed up for it. I ended up starting a TV show along with 3 other students. One was my co-host, the other was a shooter, and then the other was the producer. And we would gather sports at Oak Ridge and Clinton, the surrounding Knox County areas. And then every Saturday morning we would put together an hour-long, I know the names here, called Sports Center 7. Yeah, well, boy, we were really.
You were Sports Center before Sports Center was
well,
cool.
I don't know about that, but exactly, there you go. So we called it Sports Center 7 because it was on the cable station there in Oak Ridge. And so we did it. We did every Saturday for the last 2 years, and then it's funny, my uncle built the set. It would fall during the show.
Family affair.
Yeah, it was live, and it'd fall apart sometimes, and we'd have to keep going. I tell people there is literally not too much you can throw at me now that I won't be prepared for, because I've seen it. Over 40 years, starting in the early 80s. And then, of course, I came from Oak Ridge and came up here to ETSU.
Right. Talk to me about that transition coming from Oak Ridge up here to ETSU. First of all, I mean, you got several universities. You got University of Tennessee right there in your backyard. You've got other schools around there close. What brought you to East Tennessee State?
I tell you what, it was the late Will McDonald. He just passed away not too long ago, a few months ago. And he used to be in Knoxville. And I remember talking to him one time. I was out on a story, and I asked him what would be the best place for me to start in the state. And that might dictate as to what school I'm going to go to. Because I got accepted at all the other universities, and he told me the Tri-Cities is probably your best bet of starting early. And so visited ETSU, liked what I saw, and that's what brought me up here to ETSU. And he was right, because, you know, I started my career my senior year. I was actually working my senior year. I went to class during the day, and I was here by 2:30 and worked the night shift.
We have that in common. I mean, my senior year, I worked here. You worked here your senior year. Talk to us about those early years for you. You were a shooter. You did some fill-in. You did a little bit of everything. Yeah,
it's funny because Joe Rashani, who now works at a TV company in Knoxville, calls me up because at the time I was doing radio at WQUT. I was actually the overnight. And you got to tell them your on-air name. Well, I butchered it so many times. I started off as C Love. I like that. And I butchered it so many times. I kept calling myself Kenny, and finally, Steve Mann, who still does radio up here, says, "Dude, you need to make a choice. Who are you going to be? Are you going to be Kenny? Are you going to be C Love? What's it going to be?" It's funny because in college, I was on radio for the campus station. I was the Nighthawk. Right. And the Nighthawk has really kind of been my radio gig for a long
Yeah.
time. So anyway, I went with Kenny, and I started off at radio. And Joe says, "Kenny, we have a job over here
Right.
at WJHL, but it's a videographer, and I know you don't want to be behind the camera." And like I tell kids today, it doesn't matter how you get your foot in the door,
Yep.
as long as you get in the door. And I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And Bob Carlton was the news director, and I told him, I said, "Here's the deal. I'll come over here and work, videographer in the evenings. I just ask that when the other guys go on vacation,
Yeah.
you give me an opportunity to fill in."
Right.
And he did. He was true to his word the entire time. Even when the weekend guy left, I said, all I asked is that you give me an opportunity.
Yeah.
He did, and the rest, as they would say, is history.
Great sitting down with Hawk, and we're going to have the second half of that interview coming up during our 10 o'clock hour. He's going to tell us about some of his favorite stories that he's covered and events that he's covered in his 40-plus years here at WJHL. Yeah.
I love looking at some of that old video and just all the memories, and then how he got his start. It's definitely in his heart.
Oh,
it's his passion.
Really is. It really
it's
is.
really cool.
Like I said, we'll finish that conversation up coming up in the second half on ABC Tri-Cities. But right now, we got more daytime coming up. We'll be back.